Hey guys, rock and roller for life here. I thought this would be a good time, with all the coronavirus stuff going around. I thought it would be a good time to show my CD collection. I did this about 4 months ago, actually, on my channel, but I went ahead and deleted the video because I wasn't happy with it. It was too long, so I'm gonna separate this into about 3 or 4 parts because I do have a pretty big CD collection, actually. See, I got this over here and that over there. So I'm only gonna do the top row for this one. I'm gonna go through each one. Some I'll talk about more than others, but let's just get started. So first we have Accept, Restless and Wild. The Best of ABBA, 20th Century Masters, the Millennium Collection. AC/DC High Voltage. All the AC/DC ones, I think they're like 2009 remasters, but they're digipacks. This is an amazing, this is actually their debut international release, but absolutely love it. Here is my favorite AC/DC album, Highway to Hell. AC/DC, Back in Black. First album with Brian Johnson on lead vocals, and it's an amazing album as well, but I prefer Highway to Hell over this one. I've just heard the songs on Back in Black quite a bit. I think I've overplayed this album. Got Bryan Adams, So Far So Good. Aerosmith, debut album. As you can tell, huge fan of Aerosmith. I actually have a video where I rank their albums. Aerosmith, Get Your Wings. Very underrated Aerosmith album. Love it. Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. My favorite Aerosmith album. A lot of people's favorite. Usually it's a toss-up between Toys in the Attic and Rocks, but I prefer Toys in the Attic. But sometimes when I'm in the mood for a little more of a harder rocking album, I'll go for Rocks. Have Draw the Line. That's whenever the band kind of started to falter a bit. Still a good album. Still, title track, Draw the Line is great. Love the album cover. This, I think, is Aerosmith's most underrated album, Night in the Ruts. Love their cover of Remember Walking in the Sand on this one. Very underrated song on here called Think About You. Some great guitar work on there. I think the guitarist that came in after Joe Perry left, I think he did the guitar work on that song. I think his name's Jimmy Crespo or something like that. But yeah, great guitarist actually. Aerosmith, Done with Mirrors. This is whenever Joe Perry came back into the band. This is, I'm not sure if this album is really underrated. I think it's just overlooked. A lot of people, this is right in between, this is right before Permanent Vacation, and this one just got kind of overlooked. But then that leads me to Permanent Vacation, which of course is kind of like their big comeback in the 80s. It has a lot of hits on here, Angel, Dude Looks Like a Lady, Ragdoll, a solid album. See, I'm not as huge of a fan of their 80s albums as I am of their 70s albums, because in their 80s albums, they kind of shifted more towards ballad-heavy songs and just more mainstream rock, and they got further away from their blues background. But, still a solid album. Same goes for Aerosmith, Pump. Solid album. It's got Love in an Elevator on it. Janie's Got a Gun. What It Takes. A solid album once again. And we're going into the 90s Aerosmith. We have Get a Grip. Get a Grip, I think, is a little bit of an overrated album. It has quite a few ballads on it. You got Crying, Crazy, Amazing. But it actually has one of my favorite Aerosmith songs on here, Eat the Rich. Big fan of that song. Flesh is a pretty good song on here. Living on the Edge is pretty good. So, once again, a solid album. Not an amazing album. But, if you're a fan of Aerosmith, I recommend just... Every one of their albums has at least a couple good songs on it. We have Aerosmith, 9 Lives. Favorite song on this one would probably be Full Circle. I'm not a huge fan of this one. I don't play this one very often. But I'm still glad I have it in my collection. This one I just got not too long ago. This is the Just Push Play. I think this album came out in 2001. I went into this one with pretty low expectations because, I really hadn't listened to it all the way through before, but when I got it, I listened to it about 3 times. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. Jaded is a pretty good song, but other than that, I don't remember much about it, which shows how It's just bottom shelf Aerosmith, really. I mean, it's not anything to write home about, but it's not terrible either. Here we go, Aerosmith, Honkin' on Bobo, released in 2004. This one is Aerosmith kind of doing some blues standards. They're doing covers of blues standards. I really love their cover of the Fleetwood Mac song, Stop Messing Around. Joe Perry actually does the lead vocals on there. Some great guitar work. Even some great harmonica work by Steven Tyler. Absolutely love this album. Ridiculous album name, but amazing album. The very best of Aerosmith, Devil's Got a New Disguise. I'm not a huge fan of this compilation, actually, because instead of having the original version of Walk This Way, they added the Run DMC version. I'm not a huge fan of that version. I don't know why I didn't notice that whenever I bought it, but yeah, I'm going to have to replace this one with a different compilation, because I'm not a huge fan of that. Got Aha, Hunting High and Low. This is the album that has Take On Me, but it's so much more than just Take On Me. I actually really love this album. It's some great 80s new wave synth pop kind of sound to it, but it's really good. Really, it's an overlooked album. You know, all Aha is known for is their song Take On Me, but they got so much more to offer, so I recommend listening to this all the way through. The Alan Parsons Project, Eye in the Sky. So if you don't know who Alan Parsons is, he's actually known for being a great engineer and producer of music. He helped produce Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album. He also helped produce the Beatles' Abbey Road album. So really talented musician and producer. But I've got 3 of his solo albums. I have Eye on the Sky, Alan Parsons Project, Ammonia Avenue, and Alan Parsons Project, Vulture Culture. Alice in Chains, Facelift. This is their debut album, the only Alice in Chains album that I have at the moment. But I do plan on picking up Dirt soon. But this is actually my favorite Alice in Chains album. I have heard Dirt, and I've heard their self-titled album as well. But so far, this one has been my favorite one out of them all. Love Man in the Box on here. Really, this is a really solid album. Really solid debut. You have the Avengers Infinity War soundtrack. Avengers Endgame soundtrack. The Beatles, Love. I got a whole lot of Beatles here. Got the Beatles, Please Please Me, their debut album. Beatles, A Hard Day's Night. It's one of my favorites. Every single song on this one is awesome. Beatles for Sale. I think this one's an underrated Beatles album, actually. It's got some great stuff on here. Rubber Soul, the Beatles. I think this is kind of when they started to get into a little more psychedelic, folky type sound. They definitely expanded their sound quite a bit on this one. Revolver, the Beatles. I think this is my favorite Beatles album. I've listened to this one a whole lot more than any of the other ones. Probably more than any of the CDs in my collection, actually. Absolutely love this album. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I don't seem to like this one as much as a lot of people do. But, I mean, obviously it's the Beatles. You can't really go wrong with the Beatles. I mean, even their worst album, which I think is Yellow Submarine, it even has some good stuff on it. So, I mean, every album is worth listening to. But this one, I don't like it as much. But it is pretty good. Got the Beatles' White Album. Abbey Road. Iconic album cover. The Beatles, 1962 to 1966. Just a bunch of their singles and just kind of like a greatest hits of their early years. I think this goes all the way up to, I'm not sure if it goes up to Revolver or if it just goes up to Rubber Soul. Jeff Beck, Truth, very underrated guitarist. Of course, Jeff Beck, he played in the Yardbirds and, you know, left there. And Rod Stewart actually does the lead vocals on his first two debut solo albums. This one's awesome. This one's not as good, Beckola, but I still enjoy it. There's still some good stuff on here. The ultimate Bee Gees. I'm not ashamed to say that I really love the Bee Gees. Not ashamed to say that I actually enjoy disco music. I'm not ashamed of any music that I like, and nobody should be. You should be proud of every music that you listen to. This is greatest hits kind of. It has 2 CDs. One side is more like their ballad songs, and another CD is more their upbeat songs. And you got Blackmore's Night, Shadow of the Moon. Blackmore's Night is a band I definitely recommend looking into. Of course, you know Ritchie Blackmore, the guitarist for Deep Purple, Rainbow. He's actually married to the lead singer there, Candace Knight. But it's more like a Renaissance style album, and it's really awesome. So then we have the first 6 Black Sabbath albums. Black Sabbath, debut album. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. Black Sabbath, Volume 4. Black Sabbath, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And Black Sabbath, Sabotage. I think the first 6 Black Sabbath albums are all classics. I think you should all pick them up. Pick every one of them up. Even Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die are pretty good too, and I do plan on picking them up very soon. But the first 6, classics. The next 2, not so much. But, yeah, the first 6, definitely classics. Here's a very underrated rock band that I've grown to love recently. Blue Oyster Cult, their debut album. Blue Oyster Cult, Tyranny and Mutation. Blue Oyster Cult, Secret Treaties. This is I think this is the best one out of their first 4. And then here we have Agents of Fortune. Of course, this one features their big hit, Don't Fear the Reaper. I hate that that's all they're really known for, because they're a heck of a band. They got a lot of great stuff to offer. Definitely recommend picking them up. They're a pretty wacky, weird band, and they got weird, you know, they got some creepy lyrics too. Really good heavy metal music. I definitely recommend it. The Best of Blondie. Bon Jovi's debut album, I think, is pretty underrated. I actually prefer this. I prefer their debut album to Slippery When Wet. I think Slippery When Wet's been quite overplayed. You know, the 3 hits on it. Shot Through the Heart. Oh, shoot, is that even what it's called? I don't know. I haven't listened to that one in a while, but I know it has One Dead or Alive, Living on a Prayer, and those songs have just been overplayed, in my opinion. We have Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith. I probably wouldn't even have this album in my collection if it wasn't for the fact that I found it really cheap at a yard sale. So, you know, went ahead and picked it up. It was $1. You know, it has Bed of Roses on it, and, you know, it's alright. I don't listen to it really at all. We have Boston's debut album, one of the best-selling albums in general of all time. Amazing classic rock. Love it. Never get tired of listening to this one. I can listen to this one over and over. Never get tired of it. We have Candlemass, Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus. Great doom metal. The Cars debut album. Here's another underrated rock band, in my opinion. We got Cheap Trick's debut album. This one's great. This one's my favorite, actually. Well, actually, maybe not. It's a toss-up between Heaven Tonight and Dream Police as my favorite of their first 4. I do enjoy Dream. Now, I just listened to Dream Police, actually, last night, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm thinking Dream Police is going to take the place at the top in terms of their first 4. I think I like this one the most. We have Cinderella, Night Songs. The Clash, London Calling, an awesome punk rock record. See, really, this is whenever, you know, they tried to take punk rock and they really expanded upon its sound. You know, there's like some reggae influences and just some classic rock influences, and they kind of just fused it all together, and it's really awesome. Phil Collins, Face Value. He's known, especially on his solo albums, he's known for always putting his face on it for some reason. But this one has In the Air Tonight. Love that song. Cream, Disraeli Gears. One of the best album covers of all time. It's got Sunshine of Your Love on it. Love it. Great psychedelic rock. We have Creedence Clearwater Revival. Chronicle, the 20 Greatest Hits. We have The Cure. Three Imaginary Boys. This one's great. Great debut. The Cure, Wish. The Cure, Disintegration. I think this one's their masterpiece. It's a very haunting album. Where you can really get lost into it. It's a pretty long album, but I mean the orchestrations, the melodies, and everything, that you can really get lost in this album. It's great. We have Danger Danger's debut album. I think Danger Danger is an underrated hair metal band. You know, they came into the scene whenever grunge was starting to take over and everything, so they kind of got pushed to the wayside. But I think they were really talented. I think if hair metal would have gone on for a little longer, I think they would have been a little more popular. A couple songs I recommend on this: Don't Walk Away, Under the Gun, and the title track, or what's it called? You know what? I can look. Naughty Naughty. Yeah, that's a great song. And then I also have their second album. It's called Screw It. This one's not as good as the first, actually, but it's still very solid. Recommend it. Alright, guys. So this was part 1 of my CD collection. We just did the top row here. I'll get to the second row in another video. Third row. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, you know, subscribe for more content. I'm going to try to be more consistent with my content. And as always, if you have any recommendations for me, put them in the comments below. I can do ranking videos, album reviews, anything you guys want me to do, I'll try to do it. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya.